Alright, so for this video we're going to go through the setup for the Acknowledge recording for ECG on the Deer OA protocol. So the first thing that you're going to want to do, assuming that your participant is set up in terms of having the ECG electrodes and leads connected, the transmitter is on, and the respiration belt is on, is to make sure that you turn on the BioPack tower, so the receivers which are right next to this monitor. So on the back of the far left tower on the receivers is a little black button. So just push that black button in, and you're going to notice on the two receivers for RSPECR and PPGEDR is two lights will start flashing. Okay. Now, if the receiver is turned on, or sorry, if the transmitter is turned on for the ECG and respiration, you're going to notice that the green light status is on for that particular receiver. The one that's still flashing is for the PPGEDR, and that's for the skin conductance receiver. So since the skin conductance transmitter isn't being used for this study, it shouldn't be on. That little yellow light flashing is okay. But you want to make sure that the green light is on for the transmitter and the green light is on for the receiver for the ECG and the RSP. Okay, so once you have that set up and ready to go, we can go ahead and open up Acknowledge on the desktop. So you're going to go into Acknowledge 5.0, double click on that. And from here, we're going to actually create a new template for this particular study for the Deer OA protocol. So you're going to go up to the very top here where it says, what would you like to do? And you're going to select Create, Record a New Experiment. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to create an empty graph. Click OK. Alright, so from here what we're going to do is we're going to add our module that corresponds to the respiration and ECG recording that we will be doing. So this is going to be listed based on the name of the tower. So if you look at the tower, it says RSPEC-R. So you're going to scroll down this list and look for RSPEC-R, which is right down here. Okay, then click Add. Now you're going to check the channels. So these channels correspond to the channels that are actually listed on the receiver itself. So for the channel X and Y for RSP, we look to see, now if the black button or is moved all the way to the top, it should correspond to 1 and 5. So 1 for X and 5 for Y. Okay. Now for the ECG, we're going to notice that it also has an X and Y, but then 9 through 12 and 13 through 16. So we have 9 for X and 13 for Y. Okay. We want to make sure that RSP is on and it's listed on X. So you check the button, says it's on, and it's on X. For ECG, you also want to make sure that it's on, and it is, but that it's set to the Y. So the button is turned down to Y for ECG. Okay. Now the reason that this is important is it allows you to see on the actual graph where the channels are for the respiration and for ECG. Click on OK. Click on OK again. Okay, so now here is our module. Now the one thing that we need to do is a couple of things. One, we need to check the length and the rate, and make sure that our acquisition length is of sufficient size, given the length of time that we're going to be recording here. All right. So what we usually do for a default is just move it up to 7,000 seconds. That's the maximum that we could ever possibly need. Okay. So then we'll just click on 7,000, leave that way. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do for channels is we're going to select the Digital Channels tab. Okay. And the Digital Channels tab is essential for us to be able to send triggers from SMI into Acknowledge to denote when stimuli are appearing on the screen. So what you're going to do is you're going to acquire channels D8 through D18, or D15, excuse me. So just check off all of these, and just put acquire and plot. You don't have to select value. Because the channel for D8 is actually what is the channel for the trigger points that are going to be sent along here. And it's actually going to correspond to a different number in acknowledge right here, but you'll see that in just a moment. Okay? So once those have all selected, you have your module, you change your length and your rate, you can go ahead and first click on Save as Graph Template so that we can use this again. All right, so we're going to go into our Dropbox, AceLab, Studies, Dear Study, and Dear OA, and then we're going to just call this our Dear OA template. And this is the template now that you will use in subsequent recordings or with subsequent participants. Click on Save, and then you can click on Close. Okay, so now what you see here is the actual template. You don't see anything being recorded right now because we haven't actually started the recording. So this is good because this is the default telling you, all right, now that you have this open and ready to go, maybe you haven't hooked up your participant yet. Okay, so you want to hook up your participant, then once everything is on, you know that your transmitter is on, the leads are on, etc., you're going to go ahead and then click Start. Okay. And this is just a warning telling you to make sure that the status signal is on and that it's green. You check the transmitter or you check the receiver tower to see that it's green, and then click on OK. All right. So now you have the acquisition of all of our signals here. Now, all of the channels that we care about are up here, listed as 1, 13, 28, etc., etc. Okay. Now, some of these channels we're not actually recording anything from, namely channels 29 through 35. So we're going to deselect those. So you click on Alt on the keyboard, so hold down Alt, and then left-click these buttons up here to hide these channels. Okay. So now the only three channels that we have are 1, 13, and 28. Okay. 1 is for respiration. You can see where it says RSP. 13 is for the ECG. You can see ECG. And then the digital input is channel 28, which is for the triggers that are going to appear. Okay. Now, we can't really see the signal very well because it's highly zoomed out. But in order for us to make sure that the signal is fairly clean and we're ready to go, you can go over to any one of these scales, and you can right-click on any one of the three. And what you want to do is we want to use what's referred to as adaptive scaling, which is going to zoom in and then apply to all three of the channels so that we can see both respiration and ECG fairly clearly. And then click OK. Okay, so now we can see the ECG a little bit more up close. All right. So a couple of things that we're going to be looking for is we're going to make sure that there's definable peaks and troughs in terms of the respiration here. Okay. If you see a little bit too flat of a signal, that means that the respiration belt is probably not tight enough. Okay, so you'll want to maybe tighten that up for the participant. Now, our participant right now is standing up, but typically they would be seated. And when they're seated, you should be able to identify these pretty good peaks and troughs. Now, these are going to be impacted by any sort of movement, or even like a cough or deep breathing, things of that nature. That's okay. You know, for a couple of minutes, you might just tell your participant to sit still, breathe normally, try to avoid any sudden movements, and make sure that you can see these nice peaks and troughs. And this looks really good. Okay, this would be a good respiration signal. The next thing that we care about is the ECG at the bottom here. Now, mostly what we need to see is that there are identifiable R peaks, and that's what these are right here. So each of these spikes that you see are the R waves in the ECG complex. All right. So as long as you get these pretty identifiable spikes, we have a reliable, ECG recording going on. All right. So this is going to be the first thing that you're going to turn on and check before you even start the eye tracking protocol. You don't want to start the eye tracking protocol before you turn this on because it's going to mix up the signal communication. BioPack and Acknowledge needs to be on and running before you can actually run the SMI protocol. Okay, so as long as this is going, and you can let this go for even a couple of minutes before you even start SMI, because we have this going for 7,000 seconds. It's okay if you're taking a little bit of time to get things up and running on Experiment Center. Okay? All right. So next, after we go through the video for the protocol for this particular study, we'll come back with this video as well and show you how we save and process this data on the next video.